Hi, everyone. We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Kristen.
I am Dr. Erin.
And we are back with our coverage of the incredible podcast, And Nothing Less.
Right.
I will tell you, I really hope that this organization continues to put out podcasts because I just want to learn everything. So today we're talking about episode 4, which is called Suffrage in Translation. Mm-hmm. And there are 3 chunks to this episode. One is a conversation about Indigenous women, specifically Indigenous women connected to the Mohawk Nation. And then we have a really great little aside about bicycles and legal emancipation.
Well,
we're going to focus on some Chinese immigrant women. We cannot use Chinese American because to our knowledge, they were never citizens.
Yeah.
So kind of what that looks like. So
and they covered the Hispanic women in New Mexico as well.
Oh, yes, the Hispanic women in New Mexico. I apologize. So we're going to get the kind of lighthearted out of the way first. And what we'd like to really focus on in this one is the reminder that women legally ceased to exist once they were married. Mm-hmm. They were subsumed entirely under their husband's property. And really they didn't exist a whole lot before that anyway, because they were their father's property, but like any hope of it was different. So actually in a lot of the romance novels that Dr. Erin and I read of Gilded Age, and a lot of the heroines are fighting with the idea that they don't want to get married because they work in a newspaper or they have a dream to be a school teacher and they would like to actually be a legal human being.
Yes, or they are designing their own board games.
Yes, that was a good one. Or they want to inherit their father's department store empire. Also a good one. Those are Maya Rodale books, by the way. If you're looking for really good feminist historical romance.
Uh-huh.
But it's a real and present thing. And they talk about this the most through the increasing use of the bicycle and the way that the bicycle really brought about freedom. And I'll say I've been in a lot of developing nations, and this is still the case. A lot of women I've worked with will never afford a car.
Right.
But the idea of getting a bicycle where they can bike to the well instead of walking to the well is a game changer in terms of mobility and time saved.
And autonomy. Like those were the 2 key things that they mentioned, right? Mobility and autonomy. That's what they provided for women.
Mm-hmm. And it's also why we got pants.
Yeah.
So they figured out pretty quickly that the high button boots and the skirts weren't great with the gears of the bike. So a lovely woman named Amelia Bloomer.
That's right.
Invented bloomers for us, which was the precursor to today's trousers. So thanks, Amelia. We, as 2 pant-wearing ladies at this moment, we salute you.
I love pants or trousers, depending on where you're watching this in the world. We love them.
We love them.
Yes. Yeah. For me, I think I love the little interludes that they do on this podcast because they find a way to continue to be informative while also being a little bit lighthearted. Mm-hmm. And coming after the revelations of just how much white feminists took from Indigenous women. It was a nice
breather.
It was nice to have a breather and learn about the bike boom of the 1890s and bicycle parties and bicycle face, in which, white male doctors tried to stop women from riding bikes because bicycle face would make them too pale and too flush at the same time. But yeah, that was a great way to talk about emancipation in a way that was a little bit more lighthearted. And
because all the different of this episode is white feminists are terrible.
Yes.
And like white feminists, the system, white feminists, the brand, like when we say sweeping statements like that, if you've never really spent time with us before, what we're talking about is systems, and the branding around those kind of systems. Like when we say, cancel white men, we don't mean individual white men. We mean the system of power that props up the assumed superiority of white men. And so that's kind of what we mean by white feminists, the system that allowed Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton to be the arbiters of what suffrage was and meant, and left people like these women in the cutting room floor of the history book.
Hashtag not all white feminists. But I think, off of what you just said there, what's so important about what this podcast does and what we should all do when we re-examine history, which is what this centennial anniversary is providing us the space to do, is to re-examine it with like a positioning of intersectionality with an intersectional lens.
Yeah.
Recognizing that, based on your intersections of gender, because we're talking about women's suffrage, sexuality, race, ethnicity, indigeneity, like whatever that is, you would have had a different interaction with the suffrage movement, different perspectives on it. And the presumption for a lot of kind of nationalistic projects where we're like patting ourselves on the back for giving women the vote is to say like, well, surely everyone must have wanted suffrage. Everyone must have, and everyone got it, right? That's what we did with the 19th Amendment. But we know that wasn't true. And the fantastic conversation they had with Sally Rush Wagner again highlighted that, like, no, Indigenous women didn't want suffrage. They had it already in a lot of their nations and tribes. And they didn't want citizenship. They wanted tribal sovereignty, and not to have their indigeneity erased. But that is exactly what was attempted to do by the US government. And so I think they do that again in the second half of the podcast as well. And I know Dr. Kristen wants to talk about the fabulous Mabel Lee as well. And it taking an intersection and saying, right, let's peel back the layers on the feminist movement and the suffrage movement's interactions with Indigenous women and see what we can find and learn about that. So, I spent a lot of time thinking about Indigenous issues and rights and history, and there was a lot in this that I didn't know. So again, kudos to the podcast.
And I thought it was really fascinating too when we talked about Hispanic suffragists, that one of the reasons that it was really difficult to get suffrage in New Mexico was the way their constitution was written to protect the Spanish language.
Yeah.
And so like this other intersection that's really, really important and needed to be constitutionally protected, prevented other intersections from being, and so it was a good reminder that like everything is complicated and frustrating. Everything is terrible. So what my new hero, that's not true. We got so many, but one of the things we had planned, by the way, before COVID, to do a suffrage road trip, the two of us, because we are blessed to live in a part of the country where a lot of this really historic stuff happened. And so we were planning on going to Seneca Falls, and we were planning on going to Alice Paul's over in Jersey and out to Long Island to where some of the houses were. And
we wanted to go to Central Park, right, for the unveiling of the statue. Yeah.
We had a whole plan. We were going to do the National First Ladies Museum in Canton, Ohio, too. Like, we had a whole thing.
And then COVID.
And then we haven't seen each other since February. So,
it's true.
So, buttons. What I mean, we have now, post-COVID, added another stop on the Pilgrimage Trail, which is now the post office in Chinatown.
Chinatown.
It is the Mabel Ping-Hua Lee Memorial Post Office.
Yes.
I have so many, I need to read more about her. I need to know more. But for me, as somebody who spends like my life looking at women and religion, the idea that she spent the last 40 years of her life running her father's church is insane. I don't know a lot about Asian American religious movements. I don't know a lot about Chinese Baptists. It's just not something I've gotten a chance to learn so far. But you can bet that that's going to be a hole in my knowledge that I fix if she was, because a white woman leading a white father's church at this time period would have been, a Baptist church would have been a thing. She would have been in a very specific Baptist association. It's a political statement. It's like a whole kind of thing. Because there were certainly women pastors in Baptist churches before the fundamentalist takeover in the 90s, but like not a proliferation of them at the extent. So I'm assuming she's revolutionary. I'm going to be excited to find out that maybe she wasn't, but I'm assuming she was.
Yeah. Either way, it's exciting.
Either way, it's exciting. I love learning about women and how they enact their religion and their faith and their organization and what that kind of looks like. And I'm going to guess that a huge part of her animating passion to make sure that the world respected China was connected to her faith. And the idea of a huge Baptist principle is the priesthood of the believer, which is essentially the dignity of all people.
Mm.
And that she was particularly upset with white feminists that were kind of like shaming white men for like being more backwards than China. Like she clearly didn't like that much. And that would also really fit with some of her faith beliefs. And I'm excited to find out if my theories are correct as I dig into her more, into her history more. But that's something that America is really bad at, by the way, historically, like since the time immemorial. Pretty much since the Battle of Yorktown, we decided that we are the best arbiters of democracy. Like it's something we've done since the 1780s. Like it's just it's an assumption that we make. And so therefore, if somebody else is better at something that we perceive we should be good at, better statistically at it than us, we use it as some sort of motivating factor to get us to do something.
Right.
That ends up reaffirming the inferiority of the other party. Like I remember when it came out in the aughts that Rwanda had a 52% female parliament.
Mm-hmm.
They were one of the first countries, if not the first country in the world, to achieve that because of the quotas they put in place after the genocide.
Right.
And I remember all of the coverage was, oh my God, you guys, if Rwanda can do it, what's wrong with us? And I was young and naive enough to be like, yeah, if Rwanda can do it. And I was like, pause. It's 2008 there too. There are humans there too. It's, we don't own innovation.
Right.
In a way that we perpetually tell ourselves we do.
Right.
And so this is a really great reminder that we got to be careful with that kind of thought process because it's part of our civic project. It's part of our civil identity to fall into. Mm-hmm. But you got to be really, really careful with it because especially right now with the way people are talking about China, and especially China, but certainly other countries as well, but especially China. We have to be really careful. The Chinese have been innovating things since before America was an idea.
Was a seedling.
And the disrespect that they are shown frequently on the international stage for their rich history is pathetic.
Yeah, and what this episode in particular and the story of Mabel Lee highlighted was certainly that tendency within kind of American civic discourse. And it really picks apart again the way we talk about the 19th Amendment as giving women the right to vote and using the story of Mabel Lee as a way to discuss the citizenship barriers that women of color faced in terms of voting rights is another way to pick at that and to say okay, so what do we mean when we say women? Who are we talking about? And who gets to vote? And what does it mean to vote? And all of those kinds of questions knocks back that assumption that we're the paragons of democracy, right? Because Mabel Lee lived until the 1960s, so presumably she was allowed to vote after she was made a legal citizen in 1943. But we don't know that. But she fought for suffrage all the same. I would agree with Dr. Kristen, probably a lot to do with her religious and ideological beliefs. But I think that's a really important part of critiquing that sense of civic nationalism, is to say what do we mean when we say this, and who are we not talking about?
Yeah. And remember, whenever somebody says these days about something this isn't America, it usually actually is. The first time we excluded people based on race was in 1872 or 82. I can't remember, with the Chinese Exclusion Act. Mm-hmm. We've been deciding who America is based on race for a really long time. And that's just fact. That's just historic fact. And because we are not taught it, Dr. Aaron and I have spoken about this extensively, both on mic and off mic. We went to really good public schools ostensibly. And the only reason I learned about the Japanese internments during World War II was that I went to Ellis Island and saw a special exhibit. It was definitely never brought up in my classes. Nope. So we have a very specific way that we teach history. And that means that we're missing some parts. And so exclusionary tactics to decide what America is has been happening since the beginning. It's written into the Constitution. And so we need to keep in mind that when when we think we understand the civil project, we probably don't, and we need to keep digging and learning, which is why we are so grateful for this podcast and incredibly grateful for the work that the Women's Centenary Coalition is doing. We threw you guys some cash, bought some t-shirts. Guys,
That's
they have
right.
really cute mugs.
You got a lot of great merch and a lot of great resources. So we're going to make sure and include the link down below. I'm hoping that there's a correlation between a lot of the blogs on their website and some of the future episodes of the podcast, but they definitely have stuff on all of these people, on Mabel Lee, on Ida B. Wells, on queering the suffrage movement, and all different kinds of intersections.
Our wallets and budgets do not thank you guys for all the new books we're buying, but our souls do. So
that was how we dealt with the rage of listening to this podcast yesterday. Was we spent money on the website buying suffrage material.
Because like, I need a t-shirt that says "The Young are at the Gates." That was like an hour of my life finding it.
I want these magnets of Black suffrage supporters.
So thanks, guys, for helping two angry white feminists wrestle with their whiteness.
And on that note, we can't wait to see where the podcast goes next, but we'll be there for episode 5 next week.
With our alcohol and chocolate for sure. So anyway, have a good week, guys.
Bye.